Emily Hartman always believed that every marriage had moments that silently tested the bond between two people. She never imagined her test would begin on a warm July morning, as her husband Daniel gently rushed her through the Chicago airport with a secretive grin. The trip came out of nowhere. One evening, he had simply told her to pack light because he had a surprise planned. For weeks, they had both been stressed as long office hours. Her quiet loneliness at home ended. She had accepted the idea of a sudden vacation with hopeful relief. She needed time with him. She missed him. And the way he held her hand through security made her feel like this getaway might be the chance they desperately needed. The plane ride felt peaceful. Daniel leaned back with closed eyes, and Emily watched him with a soft ache. She remembered how he used to look at her warm, certain, quietly proud that she was his wife. Lately, their conversations had shrunk into tired exchanges about bills, schedules, and who would pick up groceries. She didn't blame him. Stress was heavy on both of them. But seeing him relaxed on the flight gave her a flicker of old comfort. Maybe this trip was his way of finding his way back to her. She whispered, "Thank you for this." And he smiled in a way that almost reached his eyes. Their destination, a quiet lakeside resort in Montana, was something she never expected. Pine trees lined the water like gentle guardians, and wooden cabins stood spaced apart to give visitors that rare feeling of privacy. The air smelled fresh and cool, like the kind of place where people healed without even noticing. Emily felt a peaceful shiver. She imagined long walks with Daniel, deep talks around a fire, sunsets reflected in the lake as they held hands. A romantic retreat. A reset button for their marriage. But the moment they entered the lobby, her perfect image cracked. Dan. Over here? Emily froze at the sound of the loud voice. Standing beside the reception desk were Mark and Jason, Daniel's old college friends, men she had met only a handful of times. They were friendly people, but they were the type who turned every quiet moment into a party. Mark waved like they were all reunited for a bachelor trip, not a couple's vacation. Jason grinned broadly, stepping forward with open arms. "Man, I can't believe we all made it." Emily tried to smile, but something inside her tightened. She turned to Daniel, expecting an explanation that would somehow make sense. But he simply shrugged, lifted their bags a little higher, and said they were planning a trip the same week. "We ended up booking the same place." His tone was light, but Emily could spot the tiny hesitation in his eyes, the kind that revealed more truth than his words. She wanted to believe him, but she knew coincidences like this didn't just fall into place on their own. Still, she swallowed her questions. She didn't want to ruin the first few minutes of their vacation. Maybe this would only be a minor detour. A few shared meals, a few laughs, then quiet time with Daniel. But the first evening changed that hope quickly. After dinner, the group walked to the lake to watch the sunset. The water glowed a soft gold, and the sky stretched in long strokes of orange. Emily wanted to stand close to Daniel and enjoy the quiet beauty. Instead, she found herself sitting beside three men who were laughing loudly over stories from their college days. Their inside jokes flew in rapid fire, leaving her smiling politely but feeling completely outside the circle. Daniel was different around them, lighter, more animated, his voice brighter than she had heard in a long time. She should have been happy to see him unwind, but a strange discomfort built inside her. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was simply watching her own husband from the background, as if she didn't quite belong in the moment with him. At one point, Mark noticed her silence. "Emily, everything okay?" he asked, half concerned, half joking. Before she could answer, Daniel responded for her. "She's just tired. Long day." Emily looked at him, surprised. She wasn't tired. She was overwhelmed. But it felt wrong to correct him in front of his friends, so she stayed quiet. She looked at the lake, her thoughts growing heavier as the sun sank into the horizon. Was this the romantic trip she had imagined, or was she simply joining them on a reunion she never knew about? As the evening continued, the distance between her and the laughter only grew. She noticed how the men quickly slipped into their old rhythm, leaving her as the quiet observer. She wasn't angry, just disappointed. She wondered why Daniel hadn't told her about their involvement beforehand. Why hide something so simple? What reason could he have? When the first stars appeared in the sky, Emily excused herself gently and headed back to the cabin. She told herself she needed rest, but the truth was she needed a moment alone. Her heart felt unsteady and she needed time to breathe. The cabin was warm and peaceful. She changed into her sleepwear, washed her face, and settled near the window with the lights off. The lake shimmered under moonlight, and the cool air slipping through the window made the room feel calm. She wanted Daniel to walk in and apologize for the surprise. She wanted him to say this was their trip, not a group vacation. She wanted to believe that he had been doing his best. An hour passed. Then another. Finally, she heard footsteps outside the cabin. Her heartbeat quickened. Maybe he was coming in to talk to her. She stood near the window, ready to greet him, but the footsteps stopped just outside the door. Then she heard Jason's voice, low and serious. Did she take it okay? Daniel sighed, a tired sound she rarely heard from him. She didn't expect them. I didn't want to tell her earlier. Jason lowered his voice even further. Why not? Emily's reasonable. Daniel's answer cut through her like a thin blade. If I told her, she wouldn't have agreed to come. Emily's breath caught in her throat. She felt as though the room suddenly chilled. Jason responded softly. So what now? Daniel exhaled again. Just keep things smooth this week. She's already overwhelmed. I don't want this to turn into a fight. Emily's hand trembled slightly on the windowsill. She stepped away from the glass before either of them could catch her silhouette. Her heart thudded painfully, not from betrayal, but from the realization that her husband had made a choice out of fear rather than trust. He thought she wouldn't understand. He thought she wouldn't support him. He didn't think she was strong enough to handle the truth. She sank onto the edge of the bed, staring at the wooden floor. Her mind raced in circles. Was the vacation really for them? Or was it simply something Daniel put together to help himself, leaning on the comfort of his friends instead of turning to her? She wasn't angry, not yet, but she was shaken. The marriage she believed in was built on honesty, and this small lie felt strangely heavy. Her heart felt fragile, like a thin thread pulled too tight. When Daniel finally entered the cabin an hour later, Emily pretended to be asleep. She felt his quiet movements in the dark, the soft rustle of clothes, the creak of the mattress as he settled beside her. He sighed deeply before turning off the last lamp and laying still. Emily kept her eyes closed, even though sleep didn't come. Questions crowded her mind. Why didn't he trust her? What else had he been hiding? And most of all, what was he expecting from this trip that he didn't feel he could get from her alone? As the quiet night wrapped around the cabin, Emily felt the truth settle painfully in her chest. This vacation wasn't just a surprise. It was the beginning of a revelation she wasn't prepared for. And tomorrow, the answers she feared might start to unfold whether she wanted them or not. The next morning arrived with a silver fog drifting gently across the lake, giving the world a soft, dreamlike look. Emily stepped outside before the sun fully rose, hoping the quiet air would settle her thoughts. She barely slept after overhearing Daniel's conversation. The words repeated in her mind she wouldn't have come. They stung more every time she replayed them. She walked along the wooden pier, hugging her arms against the cool breeze, trying to understand why the man she trusted felt the need to hide something so simple. She wasn't upset because his friends were here. She was upset because he believed she couldn't handle the truth. The water below the pier was calm, barely moving, as if waiting for her to gather her courage. She didn't know what she would say when Daniel finally found her. But she knew she couldn't spend the rest of the trip pretending everything was fine. She didn't want anger to guide her, only honesty. She didn't want a scene, only clarity. She wanted her marriage to feel real again. Daniel found her an hour later, his footsteps soft on the wooden planks. He called gently, as though afraid she would pull away. Can we talk? She turned slowly, meeting his eyes. They were tired, guilty, and a little afraid. That look softened her frustration. She nodded. He stood beside her, staring at the lake. I know I messed up, he said quietly. I should have told you they were coming. Why didn't you? Her voice wasn't angry, just tired. Daniel sighed, running a hand through his hair. Because I've been overwhelmed. With work, with everything. I didn't want you to feel pressure to make this a perfect trip. I thought if I said they were joining us, you'd think I didn't want alone time with you. And that isn't true, Em. I wanted both. I just handled it badly. Emily listened in silence, waiting for more. He continued, for months I've been feeling like I'm drowning. I didn't talk to you about it because I didn't want to add more stress. I didn't want you to worry. When I mentioned it to the guys, they convinced me to join them. And I said yes because it felt easy. I wasn't thinking clearly. I didn't realize how it would affect you. Emily's heart softened slightly. She could see the truth in his eyes, not excuses, but genuine confusion and fear. Still, she needed to speak her side. Daniel, you can't keep hiding things because you think you're protecting me. I'm your wife. I'm supposed to be part of your life, not the person you shield from it. He lowered his eyes. I know. She took a slow breath. I don't care that your friends are here. I care that you didn't trust me enough to tell me. Daniel's shoulders dropped, the weight of guilt settling deeper. You're right. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry. For a long moment they stood together, letting the morning air fill the silence between them. The fog slowly lifted from the lake, as if mirroring the shift happening between them. Just then, footsteps approached behind them. Mark and Jason appeared on the pier, both looking awkwardly apologetic. Mark scratched the back of his neck. Emily, we owe you an apology too. We pushed Don to let us join. We thought he needed a break with people who used to help him relax. We didn't think about how it would affect you. Jason nodded, serious, for once. We didn't come here to take him away from you. We honestly thought we were helping. Emily nodded gently. She wasn't angry with them. Their intentions weren't bad. They were simply unaware of the cracks forming beneath the surface. After the conversation, the day shifted. The group decided to spend the afternoon on a boat drifting across the peaceful lake. The water sparkled under the sun, and the mountains stood tall around them like silent guardians. Emily sat beside Daniel, but this time he kept his hand on hers, giving her soft squeezes every few minutes, checking on her with small glances. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Mark told funny stories, Jason made sarcastic comments that made everyone laugh, and slowly the tension faded. For the first time since they arrived, Emily felt included rather than overlooked. Later, they docked near a small hiking trail. The walk was steady and refreshing. Pine needles covered the ground like a soft carpet, and sunlight broke through the trees in thin, warm lines. Emily walked beside Daniel, who stayed close, slowing his pace so he wouldn't drift ahead. At one point, she slipped slightly on a loose stone, and he caught her arm quickly. Careful, he said gently. His concern warmed her heart. They reached a clearing with a stunning view of the lake far below, shining like a silver mirror. Everyone sat on a fallen log, sharing snacks and talking about their lives. It wasn't the romantic moments she had imagined for the trip, but it felt real, authentic, peaceful, human. And in that simplicity, Emily felt a tiny shift inside her. Maybe this trip could still give them something meaningful. As evening approached, the group returned to the resort. The sunlight faded into soft orange, and the cabins lit up with warm, golden lamps. Emily changed into a simple sweater and stepped outside to find Daniel waiting for her near the lakeshore. Small lanterns lined the path, glowing gently. He took her hand. I want to show you something. They walked quietly to a small wooden dock, where a single lantern flickered. Daniel had placed it there himself, trying to create a calm moment just for them. Emily felt a soft ache in her chest. He was trying. Really trying him, he began, turning toward her. I know this trip didn't start the way either of us hoped. But the truth is, I needed this time to understand something. I've been shutting you out because I felt like I was failing. Work kept draining me. I felt disconnected from myself. And instead of talking to you, I hid it, thinking I was protecting you from my stress. But all I did was make things worse. Emily looked at him, her eyes softening. He continued. When I planned this trip, I wanted it to be about us. But I panicked when my friends offered to come. I leaned on what was familiar instead of facing what was real. I didn't realize I was pushing you aside. You're the person I should come to when things are hard, not the person I hide things from." His voice was gentle but full of emotion. Emily felt her throat tighten. "I want to fix that," he said. "I want to be better. I want us to feel close again, not because of a vacation, but because we're honest with each other." Emily stepped closer, touched by the sincerity in his voice. "I don't need perfection from you, Daniel. I just need honesty. I can handle your stress. I can handle your fears. I can handle the truth. What I can't handle is being shut out." He nodded, pulling her into a soft embrace. She rested her forehead against his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady and real. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was simply two people finding their way back to each other. Behind them, they suddenly heard Mark and Jason cheer jokingly from a distance. There they are, finally talking like adults. Jason called. Emily laughed a real, warm laugh. Daniel squeezed her hand and whispered, "They're impossible." "But they care," she said softly. "They do," he agreed. The night grew colder, but Emily felt warm inside. They joined the group for a quiet dinner. And although the friends teased and cracked jokes, they also gave Emily and Daniel plenty of space. The tension from earlier had faded, replaced by a gentle understanding. The air felt lighter. Later, when they returned to their cabin, Emily paused at the door before going inside. She looked at Daniel and smiled faintly. "We'll be okay." His eyes softened. "We will. I promise." As they stepped into the warm cabin, the lake shimmered outside, peaceful and calm, as if reflecting the calm settling inside her heart. The vacation hadn't unfolded the way she imagined. It wasn't the romantic dream she pictured. It was messy, emotional, imperfect. But sometimes imperfection brought better truths than perfection ever could. And in the quiet of that Montana night, Emily realized something important. This trip didn't break them. It brought them back to what mattered: honesty, understanding, and the gentle choice to keep trying.